Grandpa's empty chair. In the cozy town of Brookfield, nestled between gentle hills and whispering woods, where maple trees turned golden in the fall and children played by the riverside, there lived a boy named Noah. He was 10 years old, with curious eyes and a heart full of questions. Noah was known for being the kind of child who could get lost staring at a caterpillar or ask 50 questions before breakfast. But more than anything, Noah loved spending time with his grandfather, Elliot. Grandpa Elliot was a retired schoolteacher, a kind soul with twinkling eyes and a voice that could calm storms. His cottage was a short walk down Willow Lane, just 3 houses from Noah's. It was a house that smelled of cinnamon tea and old books, of pipe tobacco and lavender. There were photos lining the walls, black and white memories of a life well lived, and at the center of the living room, by the wide bay window, stood his favorite chair, an old wooden rocker with cushions faded from decades of use. Every Saturday, without fail, Noah would sling on his little backpack, often filled with marbles, crumpled drawings, or half-eaten snacks, and rush to Grandpa's house. They had a tradition: cinnamon tea at 10, stories at 11, and an afternoon of games, gardening, or quiet reading. The chair by the window was where it all happened. Noah would sit cross-legged on the floor or curl up beside Grandpa as he rocked gently, the creaking rhythm of the chair becoming the soundtrack to Noah's childhood. "Why is the sky blue?" Noah once asked. "Because it borrowed its color from the ocean," Grandpa replied with a wink before launching into a simplified explanation about light scattering. "Did you ever meet a pirate?" "Oh, yes," Grandpa said, scratching his chin. "A pirate of the library, always stealing adventure books." They laughed. That chair wasn't just furniture. It was a time machine, a classroom, and a doorway to magic. It was where Grandpa taught Noah chess, how to tie a proper knot, and even how to whistle a tune. But life, like the seasons in Brookfield, changes. One winter morning, Noah arrived to find Grandpa coughing heavily. He looked pale, his hands trembling as he poured the tea. Noah noticed the chessboard hadn't been set. Instead, Grandpa smiled faintly and said, "Let's just talk today, kiddo." The weeks that followed were hard. Grandpa's visits to the doctor became frequent. Noah's parents spoke in hushed tones. One snowy evening, as wind howled outside and the stars hid behind clouds, Noah's parents sat him down in the living room. "Noah," his mother began, holding his small hand, "Grandpa won't be coming home from the hospital." He didn't speak. He didn't cry. He just stared at the floor, struggling to understand. The next Saturday, Noah walked alone down Willow Lane. The snow crunched beneath his boots. The cottage door was unlocked. Inside, everything was just as Grandpa had left it: the books, the scent of cinnamon, the framed photos, and the chair. The chair rocked gently, moved by the draft from the old radiator. Noah stepped forward, heart pounding, and sat in it. The cushions were still warm, or maybe it was just memory. He curled up, clutching one of Grandpa's old handkerchiefs, and whispered into the silence, "Why did you have to go?" No answer came, but in his heart he remembered Grandpa's voice, his laughter, the stories. Noah returned the next Saturday, and the next. He brought books from home and read aloud. He played Grandpa's old records. He practiced chess by himself, imagining Grandpa watching. He even kept a notebook where he wrote down new questions, pretending that one day Grandpa would answer them. Spring came. Flowers bloomed outside the cottage. Noah planted marigolds in the front yard, just like Grandpa used to. He repaired the squeaky gate, dusted the bookshelves, and kept the teapot clean. Soon, other people in Brookfield began to notice. Mrs. Hargrove, from the bakery, left fresh buns on the doorstep. Mr. Benson, from the hardware store, dropped off a chess magazine. The neighbors mowed the lawn, fixed the shutters. It wasn't just about Grandpa Elliot anymore. It was about honoring the man he had been. One day, Noah invited a few of his friends to the cottage. They sat together in the living room where Grandpa once told stories. Noah made cinnamon tea for everyone and shared stories Grandpa had told him. The friends listened quietly, and then they began to share their own memories of their grandparents. That day, the chair was no longer just Noah's. It belonged to everyone who remembered. As Noah grew older, the tradition continued. He started a small group called the Story Circle. Every Saturday, children and even adults from Brookfield came to listen, talk, and remember. Some brought photos, others brought cookies, and all brought memories. Noah added more chairs around the room, but Grandpa's chair remained at the center. One summer, the town's library asked Noah to host a weekly storytelling hour. He agreed happily and brought the chair to the library just for the event. Kids sat cross-legged on the floor, just like he once had. They listened to stories of magic shoes, kind giants, and dancing stars. After every session, Noah would say, "This story is special because it came from someone I loved very much." In middle school, Noah won the regional science fair. His project, "Why the Sky is Blue, a Lesson from Grandpa." He presented with passion, and when he received his award, he whispered, "This one's for you." By the time Noah finished high school, he had made up his mind. He wanted to become a teacher. Just like Grandpa. He studied hard, applied to a college nearby so he could keep the cottage, and every weekend he returned to that chair. He added new cushions, fixed its creaky joints, and placed a small photo of Grandpa on the windowsill. When he graduated, the entire town came to celebrate in the garden of the cottage. The mayor gave a speech, and Noah shared memories of Grandpa Elliot, the lessons he taught, the games they played, and how that old chair had become his compass. Noah became a beloved teacher at Brookfield Elementary. His classroom was filled with wonder. He encouraged questions. No question was too small, too silly, or too strange. He told stories, not just from books, but from his heart. And when students stayed after class, curious and wide-eyed, he invited them over on Saturdays. At the cottage, the tradition continued. Children gathered in the living room. Some sat on the floor, some on cushions, and some beside him in the chair. They played chess, built model rockets, learned how to make shadow puppets, and drank cinnamon tea. And when they asked, "Why do you call it Grandpa's chair?" Noah would smile and say, "Because that's where the best stories begin." The chair became a symbol in town. Generations of kids knew its comfort. Some brought their own children years later, saying, "This is where I learned to ask questions." One day, a little girl named Emily asked, "Mr. Noah, do you miss your grandpa?" He looked at the photo by the window, then at the chair. "Every day," he said. "But when I sit here with all of you, it's like he's still here." Noah began writing a book, his first ever. It was called The Chair by the Window. It was filled with short stories, memories, questions, and bits of wisdom Grandpa Elliot had once shared. It wasn't a bestseller, but in Brookfield, every family had a copy. It sat on coffee tables, beside teapots, or tucked into nightstands. Parents read it to children. Children read it to their grandparents. On the book's first page, Noah wrote, "To those who ask questions, may you always find someone who listens." Years later, on the anniversary of Grandpa Elliot's passing, the town held a celebration of stories in the town square. A wooden replica of the chair was placed on a stage, surrounded by flowers. Children read stories aloud. Adults shared memories. The mayor declared it Brookfield Story Day. In Brookfield, they say that the chair by the window never really sat empty. Because love, like stories, never truly ends, it just finds a new voice to carry it forward. And so the chair remained, polished, cushioned, loved, a quiet witness to the passage of time, to tears, to laughter, and to dreams whispered under a maple sky. If you ever visit Brookfield, stop by the cottage on Willow Lane. Sit in the chair by the window and listen. You just might hear the echoes of a boy and his grandfather sharing stories that live on forever.